Welcome into another edition of the Loochador Podcast, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors as A&M defeats Arkansas 21-17. He's Billy Liucci. I'm David Nuño. Academy Sports and Outdoors is our people. It's fall, and you can get your tailgating. Pardon?
I'm singing the song.
Which song is that one?
The Academy one.
How does it go?
I just went, Academy.
Sports and Outdoors.
There you go.
See, that's the little team.
We're not going to make that a thing, but that.
Why not? Come on, it's like when the McKinneys go,
Yeah, I
it's
know.
the
That's
freak
why I
of
don't
the
do it. I'm
week.
not a jingle. Academy.
Sports and Outdoors.
There you go. Now we're not doing it. If you're really going to do it like that. Like
How do you want me to do it?
A little less
Happy?
flamboyant.
Okay, do it again.
Academy.
Sports and Outdoors.
I like that.
That's a little more
I
opera
like
style.
that better.
By the way, you get all your
football. We're doing a football show here,
football.
buddy.
You can buy footballs at Academy. You can buy football cleats at Academy. You can also buy barbecues at Academy. What else? My Big League Chew, I think, probably.
Hunting and fishing equipment.
Yeah.
I'm actually in the market for a fishing pole.
Let's go fishing.
Well, I've been invited on.
Sounds like
to
a
my
rich person
friend's
thing.
place.
Yeah, I can't go to that.
I want to go get I'm trying to find, like, I need to talk to the fine folks at Academy and find a fishing rod that is not like, you don't want to go in there too fancy.
Yeah, but you don't want to go
not
to
a fish, like
yeah.
you can't be.
You don't want to be a poser.
And they have their own too, obviously. But I just want to go get one.
I want you to look like a real
There's certain things I want.
Bait.
I want some new. I want some irons to round out my golf club collection. It's a collection. It's not a set. So I'm just piecing it together.
I'm not in the golfing community. I don't know if you know that.
Never been.
All right, thanks to Academy. Billy, like I did last week, I'm going to...
So hot in here, dude.
I put it at 72.
It's absurd. Well, who does it at 72?
That's where we have it every time we do the show.
Well, we should do 68.
Dude, it's summer-ish, and you're wearing a mink coat. Please.
It's indoors. It should be 68 degrees in here. 72 is like sitting in Hades.
What do you want? You want 68? What do you want?
I do.
Okay.
Guys, 68, please.
I do use that number. All right.
68.
As I've done on this show before.
Because if I go 1 degree up, then it becomes. If I'm sitting here yelling that out, it becomes a thing.
I was going to say 66 degrees, but all right.
It's pretty cold. And I'm wearing what I wore at the game yesterday because we drove straight into town. And I just had to recycle the top of an outfit.
So this was my vibe yesterday. Again.
And maybe I'll wear this to every game from now on because we're 1-0 in it.
1-0. 4-1, by the way, on the year.
Yeah, 4 straight.
So yesterday, I was very happy they won the game. Okay, I want to make sure that I make that clear. Mm-hmm. For about 2.5 to 3 quarters, I didn't enjoy that game. And I'm going to give you my why, okay? Offensively.
It's every A&M Arkansas game for me, virtually every SEC game, but continue.
I didn't see how they were going to move the ball in the fourth quarter. I did not see what happened. And then it happened. I'm like, wow. Like, it's amazing when you get Marcel on the run and complete a couple passes, opening up the lanes for Le'Veon. And then I was happy. And I'm not going to look at the first 3 quarters to kind of copy and paste that mentality for the rest of the year, although there's some things I see from that. But I did leave happy. But for a while, it was more like, oh, man, I don't know about this team. So I start that off, and I'll let you kind of take it from there.
I just think people need to loosen the hell up and, like, try to understand what we're – like, it's fun to analyze and overanalyze and overthink all this. But I keep kind of – I think we kind of talked about this throughout the offseason. We get optimistic, like, oh, maybe if you look at it this way, they could win 10. I think I was on the 8-4, 9-3 fence, went with 9-3. Look, it's like I said earlier. If they outplay Notre Dame in the final 5 minutes, maybe if they get a 3rd and 5 stop, maybe if they don't give up that 150-yard touchdown, whatever pick you want to make on it, but that 3rd and 5, that's how I saw the game going. Get that defensive stop at the end, get the ball back with a chance to win it. Then who knows? This season would almost look exactly like we thought. My only difference is I thought we'd have a healthy Connor Wigman, and I thought he'd be playing at a pretty damn high level right now. And that, to me, is the big difference in what we see versus what we thought we'd see. So we're watching Marcel Reed and Colin Klein kind of go through this, development curve together. I'm watching that game the other day, and I'm like, man, Marcel did some really nice things, and I see a touchdown dialed up on the first play of the 3rd quarter. It doesn't happen. I see some missed throws there to extend drives, and then all of a sudden I see Marcel, like in the fourth quarter, playing his ass off, playing like a winner. And even when it wasn't going well for him, I didn't see him get frustrated. Maybe he'd miss a couple throws, then he'd make one. Like this was a guy that he just hangs in there through it. And by the way, he hung in there better through it than Taylon Green did.
100%.
Who has started how many games at Boise? This is a much more experienced guy that didn't handle the pressure. And really, he made a couple plays, but the real one was that third play of the game, which was like the lightning bolt where he avoided the sack, hit the bomb. But Marcel Reed was the more poised. He was calm. He had turned the ball over. He wasn't under quite the amount of pressure. He had a better offensive line. How many times have we said that? Now we're starting to see that most weeks. He had a better offensive line, and he was going up against not as good of a defensive line, although I'd say Arkansas's D-line looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And Landon Jackson looked outstanding. I was so glad the Aggies outlasted him because I root for that kid. I hate what happened to him as a high school recruit with some dumbass trying to make a joke of him going through a drill at some All-American game, and then people kind of putting that out there to make fun of, the way he was hitting bags or something. Then he went to LSU and it didn't work out. By all accounts, he's a great kid. He's gone to Arkansas and become a really good player and an NFL draft pick. Now I can say all that, but while I was watching him wreak havoc for a little bit of that game, you're going, man, could this guy have transferred out of the conference? But in the face of all that and playing from behind, that's 2 weeks in a row and really 3 weeks in a row where Marcel's shown a lot of maturity to go out on the road at Florida and play the way he did in his first career start, to face Bowling Green in this potential massive upset in the fourth quarter and really just calm, cool when things aren't going great. Okay, I'm going to go get you 8 yards on 2nd and 10. I'm going to go get you 12 on 1st and 10. Whatever he was doing in that game, he came back and kind of looked the same way. He was 4 or 5 in the fourth quarter, not for a lot of yards, like 34, 35 yards, with a touchdown, no turnovers, some really clutch, three or four really clutch throws there. I mean, obviously the touchdowns, he's wide open, but you got to make that throw perfectly under pressure. But that first down coming out of his own 1 yard line to put it where he did, and the cat, on the sideline, Jabri Barber with the grab. That really, I thought, that and then the very next play, the 30-yard run, even though they got no points off of that drive, that really changed things. But, man, David, I just think what I was going back to, we need to chill out and stop either way. Stop, it's fun to do, and we're going to talk about it, but, stop trying to project, and I'm not saying this is what you did, but you kind of do when you start to, I feel really bad about this. I don't know. When you look at A&M's schedule, I would say, for your own sanity, people, I would stop trying to project wins and losses because in this conference right now, it really is changing by the week.
But let me interject this.
Go ahead.
Game day, David, is different than Monday, David. Game day, David, I hang on each play.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. It was a roller coaster ride of emotions watching the game.
For sure.
I look at this Missouri game as the game that we got to prepare for, on the team. You know what I mean? Mentally, all right, this is what Missouri does well. This is what A&M does well. Can they stop the run? Can we get to the quarterback?
Yeah.
I'm not even thinking about Texas or LSU at this point. While I'm watching that Arkansas game, I'm just like, oh my God, if we could just make that throw. If we could just get a couple of plays of momentum.
So it depends on how you want to see those.
Yeah.
If you want to go, man, we can't do that. We're 5 games in and we're still not doing that.
We did it in the fourth.
Therefore, we're not good. And then it can change in the fourth. And it can change week to week for good or bad. And you're seeing that not only around college football, but specifically within the SEC. And look, here's the world I'm living in right now. Is I don't think the Aggies are some kind of really good high-end SEC football team right now. And I know most people would say, well, no shit. And I get it. But they're 4-1. They eked by this week. They held on last week. They lost. Notre Dame eked by them in game one, and Notre Dame had their miscue the next week, and they've looked pretty good since.
They destroyed Florida.
They destroyed Florida in between. Like, this is a team that we're watching get better.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Defense is getting better.
The defense is getting better. The O-line's getting better. I would say the passing game's getting better. It's just much slower than everything else. Like, Noah Thomas had his 100-yard game this week. He hit a big play in the passing game. You saw, I'm telling you, like, you saw Cyrus Allen hit a big play a couple weeks ago. You saw them this week take more shots. The tight ends continue to be involved. Mm-hmm. I just think that part of it is coming slower. And, oh, shocker, imagine that when we said, like, hey, this position's, they don't have guys like Georgia and Bama had running down the field based on 5, 10, and 15 years of five-star recruiting at the position. Those guys, they tried to get them. They were called Damon Demas, Chris Marshall, and Evan Stewart, who's doing nothing at Oregon right now. But they tried to get those guys. It didn't work. Meanwhile, Bama and Georgia, you watch them make play after play. And by the way, one of those guys, A&M didn't really want out of Houston, Bell, who had what could have been the game-winning touchdown there for Georgia.
Yep.
So you can find them. They don't have to be 5 stars. He's proving that. But my point is, they're not surprised that the passing game is behind when you have your starting quarterback that had nothing to do with this, nothing to do with maroon and white, nothing to do with drinking any Kool-Aid. I'm talking about scouts, NFL types, coaches, everybody, GMs, everybody, draft gurus, amateur draft gurus. Everybody was mentioning Connor. People like to play this game where it's like, oh, TexAgs and Liucci promoted it, No, it was the country. Some of you guys listen, but all you follow, you live in a world where Twitter is the only thing that exists, and what you're told on message boards and Twitter is what you believe in life. And I'm talking about fans of other schools right now, not Aggies. Now, as far as the Aggies go, everybody was hyped up about Wigman. Everybody jumped right off the bus after one bad game. And then everybody got hyped about Marcel after a terrific game at Florida. And now I start to feel like some people are going, man, I don't know. Guys, this is the thing. You have a very inexperienced quarterback. You can talk about, someone made the comparison to Arch Manning. Arch Manning was the number one recruit, maybe overall in the country. Marcel's developing, and like most young quarterbacks, and I said this a few weeks ago, the running component of his game and the ad-lib ability is ahead of the operating within the offense. And there's going to be like this internal struggle that goes on between both him and even Klein, where they're like, sometimes you want him to just cut loose and take off, but you want him to continue to become a better pocket passer. You can look at plays this week where he'll look left and he'll throw to a guy that's kind of covered, and you look right, and there's 2 guys breaking open. That was a very specific play. There's another play where Trey Watson's wide open across the middle. He never looked. That's what happens with a young, inexperienced quarterback. And we don't know how quickly or slowly that happens. So new offense, new quarterback. So this is not the new quarterback's second year in Colin Klein's offense. This is the new quarterback that hadn't played a meaningful college snap until the bowl game last year, now being thrown into a new offense. This guy last year was Bobby P. There's going to be growing pains. And here's the thing. Will it come back and bite you at some point? Yes. Does it have to this week? No, just like it didn't have to against Arkansas. So I see a guy that he's not turning the ball over. He's got great body language and presence. He is proven the last couple weeks that he doesn't get rattled or flustered. When I was probably way more like on edge than he was. You were probably up there doing the same. All the fans, they kept getting the ball in good field position. We're going 3 and out, couldn't capitalize. They go incomplete, run for 2-3 yards, the running game won. Marcel Reed was fine. Yep. So there's a lot to love, but yeah, they've got to continue to evolve passing if they want to keep winning. But David, I'd contend, I don't know this, but I know what you, me, our fans, and everyone would think if the last couple games A&M needed a come from behind to beat Boston College at home by 6 points. And I don't care that they beat Florida State. Did you watch Florida State last night? There was more bottle popping, champagne bottles at Club Dance Party SMU than there was in all of Uptown last night. It looked like they took Uptown Dallas to South Beach, Miami with the amount of bottle popping that was going on, or Vegas or something. They humiliated Florida State. Boston College is a bad football team. And if I watched A&M and you watched them and everyone listening watched A&M and all the media people that cover this, and the Aggies beat BC 27-21 one week at home, and they came back and they went to double overtime against Vandy in a game where they scored 20 points in regulation, we would be in DEFCON 1 over here. So what A&M's done is they barely beat Arkansas, and they barely beat Bowling Green the week before. And I don't know if you've checked Bowling Green's result from this weekend.
I saw that.
So, was it Old Dominion? I can't
Who was 0-3 coming into the game.
Same thing happened with App State the year they beat
That's
A&M.
why last week I said I'm not projecting any wins for anybody.
Well, I would have projected them to do better and I guess technically that's not a MAC game. But point being, I don't think you need to sit and wring your hands about, oh, they got to be so much better to beat Missouri. They don't. They just have to beat Missouri. And just like they just beat Arkansas, and they couldn't get it done against Notre Dame.
Can we give props to Arkansas's defensive approach? Because I thought it was brilliant. And why I thought that, not only were they putting 7-8 in the box often, they did a great job of containing Marcel not to the outside. In the fourth quarter, I felt like the Aggies started rolling Marcel out a little bit more. But I thought what I saw from Arkansas is obviously they have some really good players on their defensive line, but they seemed to be exactly where they needed to be. They did not give that space.
Yeah, I was impressed with their defense. And look, what they had is a horrific half against Oklahoma State in that second half after going out to that big lead. This is not a good Arkansas to me. They're 3-2 right now.
They're about to lose a lot.
They're not going to go to a bowl game, and Pittman may get fired. I like him. I root for him every time except one game. But they're not good. But you know they always play them tough. And I think they're going to lose a lot of games where they play people tough. And if you've followed Arkansas over the last few years, they'll also have a game where they kick the crap out of somebody that's on this same level. Like, there are teams that are kind of where A&M's at right now, that there's going to be a week this year where Arkansas beats somebody like 34-17. Mm-hmm. And you're going to go like, what was that? And that's – so, A, it's always great to avoid that. But B, just to beat these guys, as we know from this series, is really significant. I was worried about this game. I was worried about this game because of the matchup. We needed to see more from A&M's secondary. You know, they kind of gave up some open looks against Florida. One drive when the game was still, competitive, and then a couple late, and then Bowling Green found some holes. And you're going, I wonder what'll happen. And it's still TBD. You got Missouri and Burden, and you got LSU coming up shortly after that, and then you've obviously got Texas down the road. But there's not a lot of teams to test them there, but those three games and how your defense plays, particularly in those first two, will go a long way towards defining your season. So I thought with Armstrong, with the potential of Jaquindon Jackson, I didn't think he'd go off, but getting some rushing yards, and with a dual threat quarterback that could do what he did on that third play of the game, and that scary, that kind of lingered in the back of your mind the whole game in a close game. That combination, not to mention what he could do as a runner, that was a scary combo. You have, he hit Tesla for the touchdown, who had a big day. Even without that, he had about another 50 yards without it. That dude's good. He's a big dude, man. You see him up on field level. He's a big, physical-looking receiver. And then I think it's Armstrong. I'm going to say
Andrew Armstrong.
Yeah, Armstrong's good. Like I don't think he's like game changer, but he's a good SEC receiver.
Satania's good.
And Satania can get behind you as this guy scrambles. That's a real dangerous combination. So I worried about this game, not from the standpoint of the A&M defense getting shredded, but knowing where the offense was, that you're going, what's the cutoff for what you feel good about A&M scoring this week? And I would have been in like they scored 21. I would have been in the 24-27 range. I'm like, I don't think Arkansas can get above that. But if you'd have told me the Aggies were going to score 21, I would have been a little more nervous. And 7 of those came on a 10-yard field. So that was where my nervousness and anxiety of this game for A&M was coming from. But and Bobby Petrino.
Yeah.
And that dude was 3-0 as a head coach against A&M. He won the game when he was the OC here, getting back at the school that fired him for no fault besides his own, but still, we're all competitors. You know, everybody knows like he wanted to win that one last year. And I promise you, he wanted to win that one, this one, in the worst way this year. And he's good. He's really good. Some would say better. I'm not just kidding. That tweet of mine. Petrino greater than Sark, just to say. But Petrino's damn good. And by the way, at that time, what I'm talking about is Petrino's career and his body of work. That dude's been one of the best in the game for a long time.
Yep.
So that made me, that whole combination is like, they might move the ball and score because they're pretty difficult to defend in certain ways, but I kept going back to that Auburn game, and I said they couldn't do anything for a good portion of that game. They benched Green for a series. And they went out, and I couldn't be more impressed with the Aggie defense because in slightly, you change this much, and that team yesterday scores 3 points against A&M. That was that close to being a sack and a 3-and-out on the first drive, and he did a great job of avoiding Shamar Stewart, and somebody else stepped up, came out of it, hit 75.
Yep.
It was that close to being a sack. And I see people getting on Jaden Hill after that play. Jaden Hill actually had a really good game for the Aggies, particularly like in the box, making plays, and recovered that fumble at the end. But when the quarterback makes a move like, man, it's just hard to cover.
Yeah.
And the good thing is Marcel's capable of that as well. But I thought, like, defensively that and then that fake punt, which I want to go back and watch it, like, because just from being down there, it looked like, you know, everybody turned and ran, and that's something Arkansas clearly saw. Obviously, they got to fix that. To me, when you're going to fair catch it anyway, the last thing you'd need to do is just have so many guys turn their heads and run. And I'm sure somebody had to have messed up that maybe should have been, you know, their job was to spy the punter or something. But point being, that was their longest run in the game, 25 yards. And that drive, one of those drives was that close to ending on a sack. The other touchdown drive did end. It was over. It was over. They were punting.
And then
it was 4th and long, too. It wasn't like 4th and 2.
Right.
So there's a world where the Aggies could have held them to, let's say, if we're going to play that game, let them kick the field goal instead of run the stupid fake that they did. And let's say they score 6 points instead of 17. I thought the defense was they just kicked ass. And they started with pressure on him. They ended with pressure on him. Scorton was incredible. Nick Scorton with his coming out party in maroon and white. 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, game-winning forced fumble. I thought Shamar Stewart was just murking people down there and caused a big fumble that produced 7 points. The whole defense. Des Ricks gets the start, gets a pick. Will Lee, I don't know if you saw that stat or not. Did he set the record in that game for most pass breakups?
Did he?
In the Southwest Classic, whatever we're calling it. I thought the defense was love what I see from 0 and 27 at linebacker. They fly to the football. Defense is getting better and better, David, and that's really encouraging. And we said all week, this had to be a D-line dominant game, and it was.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was which quarterback played better also.
Yep.
And even though for 3 quarters, Taylor Green was statistically winning the battle, Marcel played the best at the end of the game. And also, as you mentioned earlier, no turnovers. And for a team that's going to be a line of scrimmage team, right, dominate the line of scrimmage with your run game and your defensive line, Marcel Reed put them in a great position and then was able to complete some passes at the end.
What's so fun about fun? It can take any form. Be a sacred ritual.
Who wants chicken?
Or a random whim. For us, fun is everything. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.
By the way, I don't know if it's something that you're wearing or it's something in this room, but I have
Some
coughed
allergies?
all weekend, and I come in here and it's like I'm inhaling something.
So
Are
automatically,
you feeling that way? Maybe that's what that allergic reaction on your arm is.
thanks. I didn't tell the people that.
Well, I'm watching it. They can probably see it.
I
Just red. It looks like you
I
got
was
bit
actually
by
worried.
a scorpion or something.
I was actually worried it was something from MMA. I thought it was.
Oh, really?
And I had a dermatologist look at
Staph
it.
infection?
That's what I was worried about, and the dermatologist said, "Nah."
Roll around on the mats, dude. So it'll get you.
So what were we going?
You're talking about the running game and the defense. And
I just think
not turning the
it
ball
came down
over.
to the defensive line, as you said, and which quarterback played the best. And there were Taylor Green, you know what he's great at? Third downs, converting them with his legs. That's what he's fantastic at. But he was not the better quarterback when it was all said and done.
He wasn't. And look, that was also, I've said all year, all off season, all year, really since he's gotten here, that I think Le'Veon Moss can be an elite SEC running back. One of the better backs in this league, an all-conference back. The guy they took on Saturday, in Jaquin Jackson, I didn't think about it, was teammates with Coley last year, interestingly enough. But Jaquin Jackson, 400-something yards rushing
It was
heading
like
into this
480.
one. Led the SEC, well over 100 a game. Outdueled Ollie Gordon when they played. He comes in, and he has 37 yards on 10 carries. Completely shut down. I think he had one run of 10 yards, 10, 11
Touchdown
yards.
run.
That was the touchdown, that's right, 10 yards. That was the only run he had of the day that long.
10 rushes, 37 yards. Yep.
Yeah, 3.7 a carry. They completely shut him down. And that takes away so much of what Bobby Petrino can do. And when you're getting your ass kicked in one-on-one blocking up front consistently by Shamar, Nick, Shamar, other guys that come in off the bench, rolling them out, Albert Regis. When these guys are getting beat, particularly on the edge when you're trying to block these dudes, and then when they try not to block them, they don't have a chance. You try not to block them because you think they shouldn't be able to get there and make the play, but they do. Or you try to take them out by putting them in conflict, and you kind of just make your decision on what you're going to do with the football based off of them. Mm-hmm. And they're so athletic that they can recover and still make the play. They were elite. And I talked to a couple scouting buddies of mine prior to the game, and they're like, dude, those guys are they're just ridiculous.
By the way, they're held on every play, too.
Yeah, I talked to Dusty Dvorak before the game. He's like, the D-line there is just all season. The opinion of people watching on the outside are like, we get used to it, and we're looking for sack numbers that were sacked. They didn't get a sack. But other people are watching and going, no, that. And I'm talking about scouts. I'm talking about, people covering the game and watching the tape. They're like, no, those guys are absurd. But what we saw yesterday was like the whole package. What we want to see, we won't see it. We want to see it every week, which is like
3 to
just
5
total
sacks.
death and destruction up there.
And it could have been way more yesterday, too. There were several,
well, Taylon Green's mobile. Imagine if he wasn't.
If
And
it's Brady
he's
Cook.
not, Brady Cook. So we'll see. And they've had some O-line issues there. We'll talk more about that. But, 10 tackles for loss. Like you said, he eluded tackles for loss. You forced Bobby Petrino. I thought Petrino did a great job in the middle portions of that game, just saying, okay, we're going to turn the ball over. We're going to get him killed. Cassius Howell almost had a pick six.
Pick six, yep.
Like, that's going to happen. Balls are getting tipped. Like, we got to just calm this down and they really kind of made the passing game, roll him out and throw it like you were talking about with Reed, but they were like, roll him out, get it out of his hand quick. We're going to have a problem. That's how dominant those guys were up front. But what impressed me was I thought the back seven had their best game. I don't think they're going to be tested more moving forward, and it's just not enough body of work to go. But it is enough body of work to go, these guys are so much better than they've been.
Yeah.
So Javon Thomas has been starting, and he played. But you start Des Ricks, he gets a pick. Will Lee, you got Jaden Hill. He has a rough one up at Florida, and then Bowling Green. You're going, okay. Start putting in 20. BJ Mays. Well, then what is Jaden Hill doing this one? He was active. I know he was chasing on that long touchdown, but he was
Jaden Hill, 2 tackles, 1 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and
sack, forced fumble. And I thought he recovered the fumble. Was that not him?
The recover, that was Scooby who recovered it.
Scooby recovered the early one. I thought Jaden Hill recovered.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, he did recover
they didn't
the last
credit
one.
him on
yeah,
there.
he did.
They probably, I don't know.
He was the last one. You're right.
Did Jaden force a fumble, or did he just recover? Anyway, he was very active. But then you get, hey, we're going to see what BJ Mays can do. He was out there playing a lot. By the way, I did say this. I think I'm on a heater right now with my sleepers and my freak of the week.
And pick six.
Dalton Brooks was my freak of the week this week. 7 tackles, 5 solos, 2 tackles for loss. Dude was a beast. He had one play that just showed up as a tackle on here where he hit that big running back, tried to put his head down like he was Jaworski Lane and run him over, and it was a complete stalemate. And down on the field, you could feel that hit. You could hear it.
Yep.
And I'm like, damn, who hit him like that? And the running back delivered a blow too. But I look up and I'm like thinking for sure it had to have been a linebacker or somebody. It's Dalton Brooks coming downhill. He did it, and then the other, who my sleeper of the week was?
Murray Daniels.
No.
He was
Was it? Or then who's my? One of my picks was Noah Thomas.
Yes, you definitely had Noah Thomas.
And Noah.
I think freak of the week on offense was Noah Thomas.
I was happy for Noah. He had a hell of a game, and they needed it.
They needed it.
They needed it from him.
And it wasn't just that touchdown.
No.
He was reliable. They were able to go to him often.
So, but the player of the game, without an exception, right? What has just happened? The player of the game, no question, had to have been was Le'Veon Moss. You can't. Well, Nick scored.
Nick
too.
scored on defense.
Yeah.
2 people who went to the podium.
Yeah, but Le'Veon, man, I started to talk about him earlier, and then I was talking about Hunter Grindunner. I started talking about Le'Veon. I went into this spiel on Jaquindon Jackson before I got back to Le'Veon, but man, David, 6 carries for 90 yards in the fourth quarter with the game on the line. And that's hard enough to do, but if you're having a 160-yard night, that's one thing. But it was tough sledding.
Yeah, like 30 yards
he
or
had
whatever it
been
was.
banged up.
Yeah.
I was wondering why.
EJ was going in there so much.
Well, EJ, but even Amari, I was wondering why. And normally I don't care. I always want to see 8 because I just think he's the best. And I thought him and Reuben Owens were both, I said all offseason, their running back position, I said it in the spring, that is an elite position with those two at the top and the depth.
Yeah.
of Amari and EJ. I was like, that's an elite position for them on this team. But Le'Veon's the real freaking deal, and he always has been, and he's really been this year. And you talk about someone that like I said, had benefited from Tommy Moffitt. But he goes out there, and I'm wondering why he's not in the game, because they needed it. They needed it, and they weren't getting it. And then you come to find out he's a little dinged up, which makes his fourth quarter performance even more impressive. But he comes in and what? 3rd and 4, that was the play of the game. That was the play of the game,
yep.
It's 20-17 or 17-14. A&M putting a little something together. They cross midfield. It's 3rd and 4. If you don't get it, I think Elko probably goes, unless you lose yards, probably goes for it. And that's potentially dicey.
Game over, yeah.
Not game over, but they could have stopped him, held him to a field. But, I mean, you're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
And Arkansas already, you could feel the momentum.
Shifting.
Confidence was on their side a little bit. Momentum in the crowd. It definitely felt like this side was like, oh, and then, they're doing all this shit. Whatever. I mean, if you're going to do the pig thing, do it all the way. Pull your nose up, look like a pig. Don't just touch your nose. That's what they start doing now. It's like they're too worried about not looking like a pig. If you're going to be a pig, be a pig. Embrace it. But you're starting to be like, God, are we going to have to hear them calling the hogs at the end of this thing? And right then, and they call a play that probably is like, hey, it's a 2-play deal here. Call a run on 3rd and 4, and he rips off 23. Mm-hmm. And that sets up the touchdown to take the lead. And then you get a stop defensively, which is a massive stop. Because, again, now, huge stop there to force a punt because you're almost in 4-down territory. Right. So you have to really keep them from gaining even 6, 7. Because anything less than 4, they're going. You have to stop them on 4 plays. So big stop. I'm standing down there when that punt hits. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, this can't be. Because I was, like, right on it. And I knew it was the right call. Normally, you want to argue. I was like, this dude just pinned it, like, perfect. Inside the 1. And that was the play. We'll go on and on the offense and review this week, but I thought Colin Klein's best play call of the game was having the Stones there to not do the old QB sneak and then run it and then have third and 6 if you're like. Rolled them out on 1st down. Again, accurate throw. Marcel was very calm on the rollout. You didn't get any end zone holding, nothing. Boom, hits Jabri Barber, 1st down. Very next play, there goes Moss again for 30. Credit that O-line, but damn credit that running back. He's really starting to develop patience, and then when he gets downhill, and he loves running it between the tackles, 30 yards, face mask, 45-yard play or whatever it was there, and they didn't score on that drive, but that little sequence of momentum, obviously, and not punting from your own end zone there after a 3 and out, pinning them. I think they pinned them down at the 10-yard line, 15, whatever it was. That changed the whole finish of that football game. Those 2 runs and that play call and I thought the play call. Here's where Klein's starting to look good, David. If you're wanting to look at positives in the offense, outside of the obvious, which is the O-line and the run game. Mm-hmm. Those yards against SEC teams inside the 10-yard line are hard. They're hard to get against A&M. They're hard to get against most teams. And he got 2 really easy touchdowns in the red zone. I mean, really easy. And that is, you don't typically do that in a game where settling for 1 field goal leaves this as an overtime game. Marcel's 5-yard run in the second quarter.
I like that play.
Was easy, and there was all kinds of looks. Mm-hmm. And it was just like we talked about last week that Bowling Green did. They kept A&M players a little bit unsure and a little bit of hesitation. And all that motion and the receiver coming in motion and then could have given it to the running back, and then he keeps it. It's rare that you get a walk-in touchdown from the 5 and a tight end catching the ball by himself from inside the 5 in the same game. And they did that both trips in there. And that was Trey coming across the formation also and getting lost in it, and he's uncovered like 2, I thought, terrific calls there. And then if you're talking about some of the best calls of the game, that one coming off the goal line, those 2. And, man, that first play of the third quarter, I mean, you really should have seen A&M go up there, 21-14.
Like that.
Right then, and overthrow. I do want to see Marcel. I mean, he's going to have to. Like, I'm not saying, David, it's okay that the passing game's behind because it'll cost you football games. But it doesn't have to yet. It might, but it doesn't have to. So if Reed can hit that pass this week, that deep ball for the big play, but if he keeps doing what he's doing, they keep running the way they're running, and they keep playing defense the way they're playing, they're going to be, you look at the schedule and you realize they're going to be in every game. So it's like, how tough is this team getting mentally? How much better are they getting in all areas, not just the passing game? And it's a lot easier to get better as you're winning. I thought that Arkansas game was so big for that reason.
So 4-1, they were 4-1 last year at this point. Okay, their loss last year to Miami. They beat 2 SEC teams, if I remember correctly, Arkansas and Auburn. This year, obviously, they had the victory over Arkansas a couple weeks ago against Florida. What's different? Well, and also they were all at this point also playing with a backup quarterback and Max Johnson.
Yep.
What is different, in my opinion, is I think a much more manageable schedule at this point in the season, the middle part of the season, than they had last year. Even though Tennessee was a game that I think they should have had and could have had, but regardless, I think it's a little bit more manageable based on what we know about these teams. So if they continue the trajectory of what I'm seeing, which is...
But, David, and you had Alabama in there.
It was a much harder schedule last
You
year.
had, I don't even think it's close, though, because you had Bama in there and then that road trip to Tennessee, which I know a road trip to South Carolina is not easy. That's 6 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, whatever. What you have coming up is Missouri at home. You've got Mississippi State on the road, which right now is one of the worst couple of teams in the league.
Kept it close for a little bit.
Yeah, but still,
Yeah.
I mean, you've got LSU coming in, who I think is a lot like A&M in that. Which way are they going to go? I mean, they didn't nothing to read from this week. They should be a 2-loss team right now. Whereas there's close games in the SEC every week. They got lucky. A referee decided to. He throws that flag, but the ref yesterday doesn't throw the flag on Noah Thomas on PI. Had that play not happened, they're really unhappy in Baton Rouge. Or had that guy just chosen not to try to hit Nussmeier. That's how close they were to losing that game. So these next 4 weeks, which includes a bye, that's why to me Arkansas was such a big deal because we're all wrestling with trying to not be too, we can't be too positive, God forbid. And I don't think you should be. I don't think you should be looking at that schedule going, oh, damn, they're going to run it until Texas because they're better than Auburn, they're better than New Mexico State, probably better than South Carolina, although that's TBD, especially when you look at Kentucky right now. I might even call that a coin flip. LSU coin flip, Mississippi State should be better than Missouri coin flip. Like, I don't think you should be getting all gung-ho, but as far as sitting here like worrying about it, I don't think it's worry stage. It's like, we got to see what happens. How much better does A&M get over the next 3-4 weeks? Because if they and there's a bye in there too, which is a big deal. Right? It's a big deal for Connor Wigman's health. It's a big deal for just the team. It's a big deal for Elko to take time to improve everything. He hasn't had the luxury of a bye yet in his first season here. So I don't know, man. I think there's a lot to be hopeful about with acknowledging that you're playing a top 10 team in Missouri, that they are coming off a bye. That's scary because they haven't been playing that good. They had a bye before a road game. Like, had they gone BC, Vandy,
A&M.
head on the road, I think there's a lot of questions, like self-doubt creeping in for them as well. But I just see this is a game, if you're going to have a top 10 team come in here, you're going to get another crack at a top 10 team at home. And you're going to get a crack at going 3-0 in the SEC for the first time. Since when? I don't know. The last time, I'd like to see how many times they've done it in the 13 years they've been in the league. And the only reason I say that is because I know in 2020 they lost their second conference game, and in 2012 they lost their first. And in 2013, I'm talking about some of the best teams A&M's had in the SEC. They were 4-4 in the league, and I know they played Bama and Auburn early. They might have been 1-2 or 2-2 in the conference. So I don't know how many times they've been 3-0, and you got the opportunity, I think, right now, if you can win Saturday, you might be looking at 4 or 5-0 in the league to start. That's getting way ahead. You got to beat Missouri, but as we sit here today, they're favored in that game, very slightly.
Missouri's defense, interesting numbers I'm seeing on here. 8th in the country in points per game allowed. Passing yards 5th at 127. Sacks, they're 80th in sacks. Just some interesting numbers.
So let's talk about how interesting that is. You've played Murray State, you shut them out. Mm-hmm. I think a team of golden retrievers could shut out Murray State.
Buffalo.
You shut out Buffalo. Did you see what Buffalo did yesterday?
No, I didn't see that.
Look up Buffalo yesterday.
Buffalo football.
They shut out Buffalo 38-0. They beat your boy Bill O'Brien.
UConn, who's they're like playoff potential.
Yeah.
47-3 UConn defeat Buffalo yesterday.
Okay. So UConn beat Buffalo, gave up 3 points. And beat
Northern Illinois, though, my friend. They beat Northern Illinois.
Buffalo did. Mm-hmm. Okay. Buffalo got beat by UConn 47-3. Mm-hmm. So shutting out Murray State and Buffalo is one step above, to me, shutting out McNeese. And A&M didn't shut them out, whatever. They scored it late. Boston College, you gave up 21. They're not good. They were ranked because they beat a horrifically bad Florida State team. Like legendary bad. Like maybe realize you might have the wrong coach.
Bad.
Because he's so stupid that he keeps playing Uyunglele. And then you gave up 20 in regulation to Vandy. So points per game don't mean a lot to me for this defense right now. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think Castellano, first of all, I don't think Murray State or Buffalo have vaunted passing attacks by the fact that they just keep not scoring against people. Castellanos is much more of a runner than he is a thrower. And what's our boy's name at Diego Pavia? He runs a lot more than he throws at Vandy. So
those numbers.
That number doesn't do it for me. I know that they're or the people that cover them and talk about them, and I think you'll hear some of this as we go on this week. I think they worry a little bit about the O-line, and I think they worry about the cornerback position in the secondary. So it'll be an interesting game, man. These dudes are good. Are they the 9th best team in the country, which is what they're ranked today? I don't believe that at all. But they're plenty good enough to come in here and beat A&M.
Yeah.
We all have to know that. But guess what? So is Arkansas. So is LSU. So is South Carolina. You got to go to Auburn. I don't think they're any good, but they were that same Auburn team was tied 7-7 late third, early fourth quarter against Arkansas last week. So nothing's a given. If A&M doesn't continue to get better, it's going to be it'll be a very average season. Somebody amongst these teams are going to just get better and better and better. And here's the encouraging thing to me, Dave. I've seen it happen here the last 3 weeks. 4 weeks. Since Notre Dame, Texas A&M has gotten better. Now, you say, well, I didn't see it, in the passing game, or I didn't see, Marcel hasn't looked like he did against Florida. There's so many ways that you can look at this team and go, they're a better football team now. And it's kind of been each week. I thought they stepped back. The one that I thought stepped back was Bowling Green. And who knows? Maybe playing that fourth quarter and having to go through what they did served them well yesterday. And maybe that's how they said, we're fine. We did this a week ago. Mm-hmm. Maybe. I don't know if that much thought goes. This might be muscle memory, though. But I think this team's steadily improving. You're seeing the best players show up, and that's what has to happen for A&M, I think, to win games like next weekend against Missouri, a game like an LSU at home, like go on the road at South Carolina. To win those games, their best players are going to have to do it. And I mean Moss, I mean Scorton, I mean Noah, I mean Shamar, I mean just the defense in, that D-line in general, where you have these all-conference caliber players or NFL-bound guys, or like in the case of like a Noah Thomas, hey, he's really gifted. He needs to be able to show that on the football field. To win those games, you're going to need it from those guys, and to see them all start to contribute and make plays, I think is really encouraging. I think the second part of that is to really have a record that people take notice of, and in other words, to beat Brady Cook in Missouri and to beat Garrett Nussmeier in LSU, you're going to have to throw for some yards, and Marcel Reed's going to have to be a dynamic playmaker, but in the natural progression of things. It has to start with him hanging on to what he's done so far, which has been really, it's actually, when you think about where he's at in his career, it's been really impressive, but he's going to have to do more. And then there's the question of if Connor gets healthy. Now we're in a weird place now, I think. You're in a weird place because Marcel's won 3 in a row. I think he's blown me away in some areas, and then in some areas, in the passing game, it hasn't been overwhelming at all. He's got, like we said, he's got work to do. Then you've got Connor, who would be coming back from a shoulder injury, who had the rough outing against Notre Dame, but he was your guy for a reason for a long time. It's in a weird place, but it's also in a weird place in terms of, we don't even know. Connor might not be able to go this week either, but you're in this weird place of, if he doesn't go this week, then you'd almost for sure think he'd be back for Mississippi State, because then from Arkansas to Mississippi State is 3 weeks, and it's already been going 3 weeks. That's a 6-week period there.
But at that point, if Marcel's still cooking, I mean, if they're winning,
is he cooking at that point?
Well, but if they're winning,
yeah, even already, it's already to a point where you're like, what do you change it up, because it is, the formula's working, albeit it's working against lesser teams. But this is a big one. This Saturday it's
massive.
It really is. I mean, you could start looking at the season completely differently if they are 5-1 at the midway. And by differently, I'm not getting all grandiose, but I'm just saying for year one under Elko, if by the midpoint of the season you're 5-1 with a close loss to another ranked team, and you've had a quarterback injury to your starter that's cost him weeks, and you're still sitting at 5-1. That would make in going into a bye week and then playing a team that's not good. Not to say going to Starkville's easy. It won't be for many, but it's a team that's not good. You have a great opportunity this weekend to kind of wash out the disappointment of that Notre Dame game and kind of just look ahead and go, man, we're on the verge of like actually making some noise. Yeah. Again, you have to win this one to do it. You have to win this one to do it. And then in your head, imagine if you walked out of that game with a win, thinking a couple weeks ahead to with LSU coming in, who's not that good. They're not bad. They're not that good. Like there's
a winnable game.
There's all the world of opportunity that they had to get by Arkansas. That was a tough task for me. you look at all those games and all the wins, and A&M's won 12 of 13 now, and that damn series could be close to 500.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 of them were in overtime alone, okay? 3 of them were in overtime alone. Elko's defense in his first 2 years here had to come up with fourth quarter, an interception on a final drive, and a red zone turnover on downs to win. That's 5 of them. Last year's was fine. This year's the 6th one that was down to the final 2 minutes. You had the oink a couple years ago. I don't want to go through all, but
The loss was close too.
Yeah, but I just named 7 of your 12 wins that were literally decided in, without exaggerating, to say were decided, were in doubt until the final 90 seconds of regulation. So it's going to be hard. And that environment, by the way, Marcel to play the way he did in that environment is impressive. That's like it's not like a playoff environment. It's not like Red River. It's not like
that game matters.
Not like the Iron Bowl, but it matters to both teams. It matters to both fan bases, and it's like playing in a significant bowl game. Is the feel of it in there, and he handled it well, and the team handled it well. Elko has to see this, Nuño. He's got to see how his guys respond in the fourth quarter of close SEC games. He's got to see how his team plays on the road at Florida, leaving Kyle Field for a neutral game. Like, these are things that he's got to feel, he's always going to it's never going to be enough for him, which is what I love in a head coach. But he's had walked away, got on that bus and plane yesterday, feeling pretty good.
Yeah.
And then right back to work, because what they're putting on the field is still not good enough to do what they are capable of doing.
All right.
What else?
You want to keep going? We can keep going.
What do you want to talk about? I feel like there's a little bit maybe that you're
missing,
not bringing up that had nothing to do with Texas A&M.
What do you want me to bring up? The Alabama-Georgia game?
A couple games in this conference that made a lot more noise than this one did for obvious reasons.
Ole Miss losing to Kentucky. That Kentucky defense bringing it and taking advantage there in the fourth quarter.
Former A&M head coach Mark Stoops.
Well, for a moment it looked that way.
That was a hell of a game plan, and they stuck to it. And, it kind of reminded me like a Jimbo game plan. Like, they stuck it, and they kept that offense off the field, and they got after Jackson Dart, no matter how, his cool hoodie that everybody in Ole Miss, they have completely thrown Kiffin and all the TikToks and all that. It's like the guy on TexAgs that got so mad because Shane Gillis came in here and it upset him because that had so much to do with the game and because we weren't taking it seriously enough because, oh, hey, we don't get good content, but we get Shane Gillis. Like, you shut up, you cancel your subscription today, because now I just remember that I'm still pissed about that comment. So we don't need you, we don't want you. Go away, don't enjoy this season, whoever you are. You know who you are that made that comment.
Pablo.
It was pretty cool getting him in here, by the way. I know you liked it.
My good friend.
I did that for you. You lit up.
I did. I don't light up usually.
We only loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of fans appreciate that. That guy didn't. Just like the Ole Miss fans don't appreciate. They're just so funny. Lane Kiffin's TikToks, Lane Kiffin's press conferences, Lane Kiffin's tweets, Lane Kiffin's dog. They go and lose to Kentucky. All that shit's not very funny anymore, is it? I'd be real careful turning on Lane Kiffin if you're at Ole Miss, because he's the best thing they've had there, maybe ever. And there's a couple of really big jobs. One in particular, I think most of us know is coming open in this league, and they're going to come after him. So I'd be real careful. And if there's any guy that's going to get frustrated and say, "Peace out,
that's Lane.
I'm done with this crap," it might not take much. So while I don't feel bad for Lane losing, for obvious reasons and the way he is, but by the way, great job of getting your players to fake injuries right and left. Again, like, this is I get it. Everybody loves their coach. But this is the guy that Ole Miss people were lining up behind. And we had guests on our show defending it because Lane's funny with the media.
Yep.
And Lane's and they line up to kind of defend it. It's not the end of the world, but it's just the most hypocritical level of behavior. And it was nice seeing Mark Stoops in Kentucky go in there after what happened. You talk about resilient. After what happened to them against Georgia, to come that close and then come back and do it.
Get throttled in the beginning of the year against South Carolina to be able to stand up and take it to what was Ole Miss going into the game? 4th in the country? Whatever.
6, I think.
6. Yeah. To be able to do that.
It was impressive. And look, fortunately for Ole Miss, season's not over, although they got a couple tough ones. That, and that was not one they were planning on losing in your path to be 10-2 or better, which is what it's going to take to get in that playoff. But how about what happened in T-Town?
Let's talk about it. What was it?
Were you on the road or
we were listening in the car? Yeah, 28.
I bet that was a good listen.
Yeah,
like that's fun radio. If you're listening to the Georgia broadcast or the Bama broadcast,
it was a Georgia
football
broadcast.
On radio for a big SEC game is actually fun. And what a freaking game. What a collection of skill guys making just incredible plays. Like, Ryan Williams is 17 years old, right?
Right.
I didn't know if you got that memo.
Yeah, I got that memo.
A couple times they've mentioned it maybe. But that catch and play he made was as good as anything I've ever seen from a receiver. When you take the degree of difficulty, the athleticism, who the opponent, the caliber of opponent you do it against. And by the way, he did that against the corner Humphrey, who A&M wanted, from Clear Creek back in the day. And then tried to get him, I think he was thinking about going in the portal this year. But to make that play against that team and those DBs in that moment, that is incredible. Yep. As good as I've ever seen. And then Jalen Milroe, I think, has to have thrust himself into number 1 in the Heisman race right now with that performance. That was absolutely remarkable. Carson Beck looked awful
and then
looked good and then threw the pick. And I don't blame him for throwing it up over there because those guys on the island had no answers against these dudes. But just an incredible comeback by Georgia, a really impressive we ain't going nowhere moment for Alabama at the beginning, and then they held on and won. They deserve to be number 1 right now. I don't see too many Longhorns. They're doing this whole thing. We don't want to be number 1. They just spent the whole entire week bragging about being number 1. Now I don't know how I feel about number 1. It's good not to have the target. One thing I will agree with, it doesn't matter, right? Like if you're 1, 2, 3, like it doesn't matter right now. But I do think Bama deserves it. They have the best win of the college football season, I think, is beating Georgia at home. And they looked impressive doing it, even though Georgia came back.
It does change Georgia's season now. That Texas game a couple weeks from now, that becomes huge for them.
Yeah.
Because potentially 2 losses in SEC midway through the season.
And they do have to play Ole Miss.
Do
they play Tennessee? I don't. Look it up. I do not believe they do, but they have to play Ole Miss. They have to play Texas. Look up their schedule.
I've got it right here, my friend. They've got Auburn, Mississippi State, Texas, Florida, Ole Miss, Tennessee.
Okay.
They host Tennessee, UMass, and then they host Georgia Tech.
Okay. I don't think Haynes King is going to get them.
Nope.
Although he's done a great job there. But I do think
Tennessee's good, man.
You look at Texas, Tennessee, and Ole Miss. Those 3 games, if Georgia loses 2 of them, and I don't want to take Georgia from losing 1 game to losing 3, but let's just operate under the assumption that a game in Austin against that offense with what we saw from Georgia's secondary, let's just call that a coin flip.
Yeah.
Which probably call it what it is. It's a coin flip game. If they come up on the wrong side of that coin, then you do look at it and you go, they got to beat 2 capable teams in Tennessee and Ole Miss. I think Georgia will get there. I do think Georgia will lose another game. I don't trust Beck and that offense yet enough that they won't get outscored. That's the worst kind of opponent for Georgia. Those teams that can light up a scoreboard where they have to keep up. And you saw it yesterday. But I think, by the way, in closing, you know what else set me off? Not set me off, but I'm not big, guys, in the this guy, you could have had this guy, that guy, like who you didn't sign.
Right.
Game. I think it's who you do sign that determines whether you win championships or not. And A&M signed too many guys that didn't pan out that they got a lot of credit for on signing day over the last few years. And I don't think they should have not gotten credit for them. Everybody, again, the whole country credited them, not just the people in this building evaluating. It was like, we didn't rank them number one. We didn't rank those guys 5 stars. But when they don't pan out, it's more about who you do get than what you don't. But damn, watching college football this weekend was frustrating at times. You're going, oh, there goes Bell for a long touchdown for Georgia against Bama. He's a Houston kid. Oh, there goes Jalen Milroe, who you took Eli Stowers over. And people remember him as a Longhorn commit. He was committing to A&M the day after he attended camp. And Eli came in the next day, and they'd been recruiting him for a lot longer. They took Eli Stowers, flat out, point blank. They took Eli Stowers over Jalen Milroe. Now, I don't know if Bama could have come in and stolen Milroe.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would have, though, because it sounds like Texas fans think somebody on the Longhorn staff kind of dropped the ball in that recruitment, the previous staff. So that might have been why he went. He might have stayed with it. But Milroe, Bell, I'm watching on Friday night, and I see a quarterback from Summer Creek balling over their drones for Virginia Tech. Should have had a Hail Mary caught for a touchdown. I see Cam Ward
another
from the
one.
Houston area, who I don't know. Daryl Dickey, I guess, told Andre Ward that he tried to get Jimbo to take him, which is true. So you're watching college ball this weekend, and I'm just going, damn.
All these people.
A lot of dudes. But it just goes to show you that it really really does matter, like, who you take versus who you don't. You know, the evaluation is such an important deal here. I mean, it really is. It's make or break in college coaching. And now, you would go into a whole other can of worms, and I won't, but it's like, it makes you really question the high school recruiting versus portal, because you can get so much more information.
From the portal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Going to do it, or do you want to keep going?
I think I'm good.
You think you're good? Well, we'll have a lot to talk about tomorrow. We'll have another night of sleep. I think new thoughts will happen. That's going to do it for the Loochador Podcast here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody watching this afternoon. We will see you tomorrow on TexAgs Live.
Fun, memories, friendship. We're here for all of it. Here for the big moments and the small ones too. We're here for unforgettable triumph, momentary misfortune, and the impromptu throwdown. We're out here each day, chasing something great. Call it adventure, call it play, we call it fun. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Have fun out there.